Deep within the walls of the Vatican City, nestled behind layers of security and centuries of mystery, lies one of the world's most enigmatic collections of historical documents. The Vatican Apostolic Archives, known until 2019 as the Vatican Secret Archives, represents perhaps the most tantalizing and inaccessible repository of human knowledge ever assembled. Spanning more than 53 miles of shelving and housing documents, dating back to the 8th century, this vast collection has been the subject of scholarly intrigue, religious reverence, and conspiracy theories for centuries. The very name Secret Archives has contributed to the mystique surrounding this collection. Although Pope Francis officially changed the name to the Vatican Apostolic Archives in October 2019, the centuries of speculation about what lies within these hallowed shelves cannot be erased by a simple rebranding. The name change was ostensibly to clear up misinterpretations arising from the Latin word secretum, which more accurately translates to private or personal rather than secret in the modern sense. Yet, the question remains, was this merely a semantic clarification or an attempt to distance the institution from the swirling conspiracies that have long surrounded it? As we pull back the curtain on this extraordinary collection, we must ask ourselves, what truths lie buried in these ancient documents? What controversial knowledge has been kept from public view? And perhaps most importantly, what might we learn about our past and possibly our future if we could freely explore the contents of these closely guarded archives? The Vatican Apostolic Archives serves as the central repository within the Vatican City, housing all acts disseminated by the Holy See, along with state papers, correspondence, account books, and countless other documents accumulated by the Catholic Church over more than 12 centuries. Until the 17th century, these documents were part of the Vatican Library, but under the orders of Pope Paul V, the Secret Archive was separated and established as its own entity. This separation marked a critical moment in the history of these documents. By isolating these records from the more accessible Vatican Library, the Church created a distinct space where sensitive materials could be stored away from prying eyes. For centuries following this division, the archives remained closed to outsiders, accessible only to those within the inner circle of the Catholic hierarchy. It wasn't until the late 19th century that the first cracks appeared in this wall of secrecy. In 1881, Pope Leo XIII, following the recommendation of archivist Cardinal Joseph Hergenrother, made the revolutionary decision to open the archives to scholars. This opening, however, came with significant caveats. Research was to be impartial and critical, a standard that was almost certainly designed to prevent Protestant scholars from using archival materials to defame or embarrass the Catholic Church. Today, the Vatican Apostolic Archive stands as one of the world's most secure buildings, with protocols and restrictions that rival those of military installations. Located in a fortress-like section of the Vatican, the archives are protected by multiple layers of physical and procedural security measures designed to limit access and preserve the integrity of its historical treasures. The process to gain entry to the archives is among the most stringent in the world. Reporters, students, and amateur historians are explicitly prohibited from accessing the archives. Authorizations are only provided to academic researchers with advanced degrees, at minimum a 5-year university course or equivalent diploma, with clergymen requiring a licentiate degree or PhD. And even these permissions must be renewed every 6 months. Additionally, documents in the archives are only accessible once they are 75 years old, a policy that ensures that materials related to recent church history remain confidential. When granted access, scholars enter the Vatican through a specific entry point secured by the Swiss Guard. They are permitted to view only 3 pre-requested documents per day. And while personal computers are allowed, photography is strictly prohibited. These restrictions help explain why so few images exist of the archive's 53 miles of shelving and its contents. Perhaps the most secure section of the archives is the underground vault known as the bunker, a reinforced concrete structure designed to protect the most valuable and sensitive documents from both physical damage and unauthorized access. This fortress within a fortress was dramatic enough to inspire a fictionalized version in Dan Brown's novel, Angels and Demons. Within the Vatican Apostolic Archives lies a treasure trove of historical documents that provide unparalleled insights into both religious history and secular affairs across the centuries. Among the most famous items housed in the collection are 1. Documents from Galileo's trial. The archives preserve notes from the infamous 17th century trial of scientist Galileo Galilei, who challenged the Church's geocentric view of the universe. These documents chronicle one of history's most notorious conflicts between scientific inquiry and religious dogma, culminating in Galileo's house arrest for the remainder of his life. Number 2. The oldest document. Dating back to 809 CE, a loose parchment page recording a donation to a church in Venice represents the oldest document in the collection, offering a tangible link to the early medieval period. 3. Papal bulls. The archives house numerous significant papal bulls, including Alexander VI's 1493 decree that effectively divided the New World between Spain and Portugal, and Pope Leo X's 1521 bull excommunicating Martin Luther, a pivotal document in the history of the Protestant Reformation. Number 4. Royal correspondence. The collection includes letters from numerous monarchs, including a poignant plea from Mary, Queen of Scots, written months before her execution, requesting papal intervention to save her from prison. The Pope's decision not to intervene in this matter sealed her fate, and she was executed in 1587. 5. Henry VIII's annulment request. Perhaps the most consequential royal correspondence is the original 1530 letter from British nobles urging Pope Clement VII to grant King Henry VIII an annulment of his marriage to Catherine of Aragon. The Pope's refusal led to the English Reformation and the establishment of the Anglican Church, forever altering the religious landscape of Britain and its future empire. Number 6. World War II documents. The archives contain extensive documentation related to the papacy of Pope Pius XII during World War II, including records that have fueled ongoing debates about the Vatican's response to the Holocaust and its diplomatic relations with Nazi Germany. But these acknowledged contents may represent merely the tip of the iceberg. What other documents might lie hidden within those 53 miles of shelving beyond the limited access granted to approved scholars? Controversies and historical shadows. The Vatican archives have been at the center of numerous historical controversies, with scholars and critics questioning the Church's handling of sensitive historical periods and events. Some of these controversies include: perhaps the most significant modern controversy surrounds Pope Pius XII's actions or inactions during the Holocaust. Critics have long questioned why the wartime Pope did not more vocally condemn Nazi atrocities against Jews and other persecuted groups. The Vatican has defended Pius, suggesting he used quiet diplomacy to save lives and feared that public condemnations would trigger retaliation against the Vatican and Catholics in Nazi-occupied territories. In 2020, Pope Francis ordered the documents from Pius XII's pontificate opened ahead of schedule to allow scholars to develop a more complete understanding of this contentious period. Remarkably, even Archbishop Sergio Pagano, the longtime prefect of the Vatican Archives, has expressed discomfort with Pius's continued silence after the war ended, when the threat of Nazi retaliation was no longer present. After the war, I would have expected a word more for all these people who went to the gas chambers, Pagano candidly admitted in a recent interview. Nazi escape routes. More controversial still are allegations that the Vatican actively assisted Nazi war criminals in escaping justice after World War II. Harvard researcher Gerald Steinacher has presented evidence suggesting that Vatican officials provided travel documents that helped thousands of Nazis flee to South American countries, particularly Argentina, Chile, and Brazil. Steinacher argues that this assistance was motivated by a desire to revive European Christianity and counter the growing influence of the Soviet Union. The Vatican has consistently declined to comment on these serious allegations. The financial operations of the Vatican, particularly the Institute for the Works of Religion, commonly known as the Vatican Bank, have generated serious controversies that may be documented in the archives. Historical evidence suggests the Vatican received church tax from Hitler's regime, and that the Vatican Bank may have been used to store billions of dollars in transactions that remained hidden from Western banking oversight. There are even allegations that Vatican financial advisor Bernardino Nogara instituted a scheme that allowed the Vatican to profit from life insurance policies of murdered Jewish families by investing in Italian insurance companies that retained these assets. Beyond documented controversies lie the realm of conspiracy theories and unverified claims about the archive's contents. While these theories lack substantial evidence, they persist in popular imagination and continue to fuel speculation about what might be hidden in the Vatican's most restricted collections. Some conspiracy theorists claim the archives contain communication between Emperor Nero and St. Paul regarding the existence of Jesus Christ. These theories suggest the Vatican may be hiding proof that Jesus did not exist as described in Christian scripture, a revelation that would fundamentally undermine the theological foundations of Christianity. One of the more fantastic claims about the archives suggests they house evidence of extraterrestrial life, including actual extraterrestrial skulls. Related theories propose that documentation exists showing papal collaboration with alien beings on plans to implant tracking devices in humans. While these claims veer deeply into science fiction territory, they represent the extreme end of speculation about what might be concealed within the archives. In 1917, 3 Portuguese children reportedly received prophecies from an apparition of the Virgin Mary at Fatima. The so-called Third Secret was kept confidential by the Vatican for decades, fueling rumors that it contained apocalyptic predictions about nuclear holocaust or natural disasters. When the Vatican finally released the contents in 2000, many conspiracy theorists remained unsatisfied, believing the true message had been suppressed or altered. Perhaps the most fantastic claim involves the alleged existence of a device called the chronovisor, supposedly built by Italian scientist and priest Father Pellegrino Maria Ernetti. This theoretical device allegedly allows viewers to observe events from both the past and future. While there is no credible evidence that such a device exists, the persistent legend claims that it remains hidden somewhere in the Vatican archives. Some conspiracy theorists believe that despite their apparent dissolution centuries ago, the Illuminati have secretly rebuilt their influence, placing members in powerful positions throughout the world, including within the Vatican hierarchy. These theories posit that key Vatican officials may be covert members of this shadowy organization, secretly advancing an agenda hidden from public view. In recent decades, the Vatican has taken steps to make portions of its archives more accessible, though significant restrictions remain. Since Pope Leo XIII first opened the archives to qualified scholars in 1881, access has gradually expanded, though always under careful controls. Occasional exceptions to the 75-year rule have been granted for specific research purposes, such as Pope John Paul II's 2002 decision to allow researchers access to documents relating to the Holy See's relations with Germany during the Nazi era. A significant development came in the early 21st century when the Vatican Archives began an internal digitization project. This initiative serves two primary purposes: making documents more accessible to approved scholars and preserving aging physical documents from deterioration. By 2018, the archives had developed 180 terabytes of digital storage capacity and digitized more than 7 million images. However, this represents only a small fraction of the total material housed in the archives, and an even smaller percentage has been transcribed into searchable computer text. In 2017, a promising collaboration called the In Codice Ratio project was launched at Roma Tre University. This initiative employs artificial intelligence and optical character recognition technology to transcribe more documents from the archives. The project faced significant challenges due to the difficulty of interpreting medieval handwriting, but eventually achieved 96% accuracy in analyzing these historical texts. This technological advancement promises to gradually unlock more of the archive's contents for scholarly analysis. Despite these advancements, the fundamental paradox of the Vatican archives remains. How can we know what we don't know? The very nature of restricted access creates an epistemological problem. Scholars can only request documents they already know about or suspect exist. This creates a circular dilemma where potentially revolutionary historical documents might remain hidden simply because no one knows to ask for them. This reality fuels both legitimate scholarly frustration and more speculative conspiracy theories. When access is tightly controlled and limited to pre-approved researchers examining pre-requested materials, the potential for important discoveries to remain buried is significant. The question becomes not just what is in the archives, but what might be systematically excluded from scholarly examination. Even Archbishop Pagano, who has worked in the archives for 45 years, acknowledges there are documents whose existence remains unknown to most. In his recent book Secretum, he reveals previously undisclosed details about various historical events, including Napoleon's sacking of the archive in 1810 and the unusual circumstances surrounding the 1922 papal conclave that was financed by last-minute donations from American Catholics. If the archive's own prefect is only now revealing such details, after nearly half a century of service, what other revelations might remain locked away? Perhaps one of the most fascinating aspects of the Vatican archives is how certain documents have survived periods of danger and upheaval. Archbishop Pagano recounts how during Napoleon Bonaparte's seizure of the Vatican archives in 1810, his predecessor as chief archivist managed to save Henry VIII's annulment request letter by rolling it up and concealing it in a secret drawer within a chair in the archive antechamber. This anecdote raises a provocative question. If one document could be hidden so effectively during a systematic seizure of the archives, how many other sensitive documents might have been similarly concealed throughout history? Might there be materials that exist outside the official catalog, known only to a select few within the Vatican hierarchy? The Vatican Apostolic Archives remains one of humanity's greatest repositories of historical knowledge. a treasure trove of documents spanning 12 centuries of human experience. Its contents have shaped the course of history, documented the rise and fall of empires, and preserved the intellectual and spiritual deliberations of one of the world's oldest continuous institutions. Yet it also represents something more ambiguous, a symbol of institutional secrecy in an age that increasingly values transparency. The strict limitations on access, the 75-year rule for document release, and the careful vetting of scholars all suggest an organization that remains deeply cautious about allowing unfettered examination of its past. This tension between preservation and concealment, between scholarly access and institutional control, creates the perfect environment for both legitimate historical inquiry and more speculative theories about what might lie hidden within those 53 miles of shelving. The truth, as always, likely lies somewhere between the official narrative and the most extreme conspiracies. As technology advances and more documents are digitized and analyzed, new revelations will inevitably emerge from these ancient collections. Some may confirm long-held suspicions, while others might challenge our understanding of historical events and figures. But the most tantalizing possibility remains that somewhere in those climate-controlled vaults, undiscovered documents wait silently to transform our understanding of history, religion, and perhaps even our place in the universe. The Vatican Apostolic Archives stands as both a testament to human knowledge and a reminder of its limitations, a place where the boundaries between what we know and what remains hidden continue to shift, but never quite disappear. In that enigmatic space, both scholars and skeptics find common ground in their quest to uncover what lies behind the veil of history's most enduring secrets.